Sometimes I get a little concerned that I am casting the same players a little bit too frequently. It's just that these two, they play in a lot of tournaments right now. There's, in general, not a lot of Zerg versus Terran to cast. And as it is the most popular matchup. And these two, well, because they're phenomenally good, they keep playing each other. The last few times I did check out ByuN going up against Solar. They did play some really solid games of StarCraft. And this is the latest time that they have played against each other in a best-of-3 series. So let's go check it out. We start off on Tato's Citadel. What is nice about these two playing against each other is that usually we get some longer matches. ByuN is very much so the type of Terran player that will try and draw the game out if he sees an opportunity for it. And with the playstyle that Solar likes to employ in this matchup, 9 out of 10 games, maybe even more than that, maybe 19 out of 20 games, he does decide to go for the more macro-focused approach. Now, please note that there is no chatter going on here. Okay. Serious business this time around. Usually, until about minute 2 or so, the players are yapping. They're pretending like they're having coffee together with friends. I don't really know, but none of that is happening here this time around. Okay. Maybe the gloves are off. Or maybe they have been chatting in the pre-game lobby. Usually, by the way, this is something that pops up all the time. So usually whenever there is a lot of chatter going on, somebody in the YouTube comment section, shout out, by the way, to the guys that help us out with that, but somebody in the YouTube comment section usually translates what the conversation is all about. And very frequently, do they not quite understand what in the world they're talking about. And the reason for that is that usually there is a conversation that started before the games did. So when you're in the in-game, the pre-game lobby, you can already begin your conversation. And I think what happens is that usually they will continue the conversation that started minutes earlier when they're already loaded into game number 1. So sometimes it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Sometimes things in general are just a little bit confusing, and I guess the final thing to keep in mind is that most of the time, pro gamers are also massive trolls. I feel like this is most obvious whenever there's like player interviews, and whenever you ask them, hey, what's the weakest race? They will always say the others, or if they're like, for example, a hero, maybe like a player that's a bit more tongue-in-cheek, they will call out their own race. But rarely will you get an honest answer. Rarely will you actually get information out of them that you can then go ahead and use. Anyways, triple command center opener right here for ByuN. We're gonna go barracks into a factory. I'm expecting a starport. There it is. Big switcheroo, probably a tech lab on that barracks here in just a moment. At which point he should be able to go into some benchy play if he really wants to. I'm not sure if we're gonna really see any crazy variety. Maybe that's the one criticism of these playing against each other. While I say that, Solar is making an awful lot of Zerglings here. Way more than you normally produce. Kind of reminds me a little bit of those ByuN games I've recently had a look at. Where ByuN at this phase in the game with Zergling speed finishing up also made a huge influx of lings. Normally you make about 10, maybe, in total. We're all the way up to 26. And apparently he's going to try and run them around. Overlord here at the front sees the Hellions' movement. And the Zerglings are taking a very long route around. He's crossing his fingers and hoping that those Hellions are now on the other side of the map. But ByuN may be sniffing out that something is a bit off. Still though, we should save the Overlord, I think. Yeah, save Otto, he's a nice guy. At the very least, distract the Marine. Good bit of damage being done here by the Zerg. But obviously the question always is, will this justify making a big influx of Zerglings at this stage in the game? I mean, if StarCraft was a spreadsheet, I don't think this would be a cost-effective play. Yeah, if you compare the raw mineral numbers, it may not be 100% worthwhile, but I don't actually mind it all too much. The thing is, ByuN now is apparently feeling forced to continue making some additional Hellions. It's not the norm to actually build Hellions 7 and 8 every single time. We'll have to see if he adds on even more past this point. And obviously now the Hellions are very disjointed. He does have 3, which is enough to one-shot a drone. I do like this move out though, because it's going to force additional Zergling production. Yep. And obviously that means that drones are not going to be made. I'm not expecting a giant barbecue here, but ByuN's aiming for it. So risky, man, to clump them up and then... Alright. Solo right there. Having a little bit of a panic. Misclick here from the Terran player. He could have finished off one more drone in the end. Across the board, though. I think this is a fairly even early game here from both players. Now, we do have double Banshee. Interestingly enough, not a single upgrade. So, a lot of Terrans have been messing around with Hyperflight Rotors. A lot of Terrans have obviously been messing around with Cloak. Normally, you get at least one of the two. Either that or you only make one Banshee. In this particular instance, we made two Banshees, but no upgrades. Which I think is probably a misplay. Roach Warren right now, though, on the back of this here for Solar. Who has been skipping out the Roach Warren quite frequently, actually. This is the fourth base of the Zerg player that's currently under threat. You cannot obviously transfuse one of those structures until it's done. And with Cloak, yeah, you could probably guarantee the kill. In this particular instance, we're missing that upgrade, and the Banshees are, yeah, just gonna put those Queens on idle for a little while, I suppose, but should not be the end of the world. There are still 3 Queens waiting inside of the main base, too. Looks like Solar actually has probably 2 control groups for Queens. Most of the time, Zerg players have at least 2, sometimes even up to 3 control groups for their Queens. It is the norm, at least these days, to have like one dedicated for creep spread. So a hotkey group that is for creep spread. That's probably these ladies right over here. And then others as well that can do, well, just the base injections. There are some Zergs out there that have 3 control groups. So usually that's 1 for injecting, then 1 for spread and creep on the right side, and then 1 for spread and creep on the left side. Technically, that is optimal. But realistically, when you're once more running into the limitations of being human, when you find out that you're the bottleneck and not the video game, or your computer, or anything along those lines, usually, yeah, 2 is not a bad idea. Personally, I've given that a try many times, and I use 1. It's so hard. It's so easy when you look at the players and when you like try to rationalize it in your head. Yeah, obviously. 3 control groups for Queens makes a lot of sense. But when you're actually playing and there's a dozen balls to keep up in the air, the juggling gets tough. Okay. Now we have a Roach Ravager here into Quick Infestors with a Hive. Very fast Hive, all things considered. Siege tank on the Watchtower. Quite like that. Getting a bit of additional damage done. Second factory, though, is already finished. We'll probably see a tech lab on that one in a moment. And we've got ourselves a 4th command center added into the mix. It's actually a reactor. Okay. So we're making the switch into Widow Mines, it seems. 5th hatchery coming up right now for Solar. I would imagine that this is going to be into Ultralisks. But I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, we are going melee right now. I'm guessing it's going to be +2 carapace. Still, though, top priority, obviously, is defending this attack right here from the Terran. Interestingly enough, Solar is not going for his beloved Lurker Nidus style that he usually goes for in this matchup. Yep, there it is. Ultra Cavern starts up. +2 indeed has already begun. We'll probably have Adrenal Glands for the Zerglings here as well with the, well, next gas expenditure. He doesn't know about the Terran's 4th base, but I think he probably can sniff out that this is not going to be a 3-base all-in by now. There's Adrenal. Bailing speed is just seconds away now from being done. Yeah, and yet again, I gotta keep saying it, but Solar is playing some really solid StarCraft in general. Like, this is the type of Zerg strategy that hangs together by a thread. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and that just immediately create an absolute disaster, but Solar's not just juggling, he's also keeping everything up in the air. He is now using the Roaches, though, as like a stepping stone to go all the way up to those Ultras, and now that the Ultras are being made, I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of additional production there as far as Roaches go. Either way, ByuN's aggression here has been good. Medevac is going to get sniped down. Little unfortunate. Should have moved that one away, but it's because he was pushing to the front over here. Widowmine does get biled down. Also does get a shot in. We have one Infestor Fungal. Okay, only catches one Marine and a Medevac. And Solar defense. And this was honestly a really solid bit of defense. He wants to give up on the roaches by now. So the roaches are mostly dead supply. So trading them out for literally any value is really nice. Yeah, he doesn't want to quite sacrifice them. He's also pushing here on the right. Nice defense though by ByuN. As he picks up a few of the weakened units there, unsieging the tank. Going into the +3 armor first. Because of course he is. And now, Solar has got where he wanted to go. So it's been an 11-minute master plan. But he managed to get up to Ultraling Bane with Infestors for support. For now though, ByuN is not going into Ghosts. He is not adding on Liberators either. He's doing the biggest ByuN thing in the entire game. And that is making Marauders instead. I don't recommend it, because there's a million things that can go horribly wrong here as a Terran player. But ByuN has proven time and time again that this is something he can work with. I think it's much safer though. Okay, yeah, to make a more reliable transition. So that's 2 starports now added into the mix as well over at the 4th base. Now, I don't know here as the Zerg whether or not you can play it passively. I always kind of feel like this is the time to shine for Ultraling Bane. Can you really just chill this out and, like, you know, slowly let the Terran player get up to Liberators? Oof. Because Ultras, in my mind, really get worse the longer that the game goes on. I think ByuN also sort of agrees with it, because ByuN is aggressively pushing into an army that's technically better than, well, his. But as long as he's taking the main fights off creep, it's okay. And as long as he can buy time to get that Liberator production really properly started, it's not the end of the world. Honestly, a really good play here by ByuN. He is going to lose a little bit because he's microing again on the right side. And this time around, the fungal growth does connect, but it wears off nice and quickly. Marine Marauder Medevac, baby. It's pretty good. No one does it better than ByuN. It's just Marine Marauder Medevac. Making it look so straightforward, too. Triple command center added into the mix. We have Marine Marauder, Medevac, Mine, Miberator. Moment, Mentor. Only things that start with the letter M. Mule. MCV's good to go, sir. It's mineral scavenging vehicle. MCV, good to go, sir. It works. Now, the Liberators, though, are coming. And they will try their absolute best to liberate the Terran forces of the Zerg oppression. It's a lot of Zerg oppression, though. You know what we need, guys? Microbial Shroud. Another thing that starts with the letter M. I don't think Microbial Shroud is really going to help out that much, but I think we should give it a shot. Because if I look at this game right now, right? Is this possibly going to be a Solar win? Because in my mind, this is only going to get worse now. Like, the time for the Ultra's ultimate strength is slipping. Now, obviously, if you get a good fungal, if you get a good fight, sure, Ultras can still put in a lot of work. But as the Liberator count is growing, and now we also have the additional command centers done, Terran's eco is through the roof. Ghost Academy is being added into the mix. I mean, the age of the Ultra is pretty much over. Like, technically a guy in full plate armor can win against a guy with a gun, right? But, like, it's... Solar is in a previous age. Now, he is going into Aspire. I would imagine that's going to be for Corruptors. If you get a good group of Corruptors out, obviously you can snipe not only the Liberators, but also the Medevacs. And those really are the backbone of this Terran army. On the flip side, though, if you make too many of those Corruptors, well, you end up with not enough army to actually deal with all of these units. And usually you do play this type of Zerg unit composition off of like at least 85 drones or so. So you don't have a ton of supply for army. The dancing here from ByuN has been excellent. It's a lot of multitasking, though. Yeah. 489 average actions per minute for a Terran is nuts. For Zerg, it's usually a little bit inflated with the way that like unit productions and unit cycles work. Near 500 APM, and that's probably mostly genuine APM. Although obviously there's going to be spamming part of it too, but ByuN is playing out of his mind fast. Fungal. It's a good fungal. Yeah, and those fungals, the corrosive biles, they are putting in a good bit of work. This is nice though here for ByuN. He's going into the ghosts. We are currently sitting at 5 orbital commands, more CCs coming up. Once you get up to like 8 or so orbitals, it kind of feels like you don't have to ever rebuild SCVs again. He will probably keep them around and use them to build up a bank, maybe increase the amount of command centers he has. Love this little bit of Liberator harassment here as well from ByuN. Yeah, maybe I'm mistaken, but I look at these type of games and I wonder if Zerg is not just fizzling out. It's a slow death animation. And there's a lot of movement that has to go well on the side of the Terran to pull this sort of thing off, but it feels like the win condition is so much clearer for the Terran than it is for the Zerg. ByuN doing a phenomenal job as well, keeping all of his bases safe, by the way. Really stellar work. Okay, here we go. Corruptors are starting to pop out now. We have 14 of them. So that's going to be Solar's idea moving forward. He wants to kill those Liberators. He seems to do it, by the way, around the same time that the ghosts pop out. So maybe that's his cue? I'm not exactly sure. He does get the base in the top right-hand corner mining. Okay, the Corruptors are fast, though. Like, they deal a lot of damage. They will clear out these Sky Terran units very rapidly. Widow Mines are putting in quite a bit of friendly fire, too. Man, it's a literal minefield out there. Solar does push these units away, though. Yeah, he does push them away, but the question is, at what cost? Look at the cost efficiency so far here from the Terran. It's about a 6,000, 6,500 mineral advantage. A few thousand gas as well. And he's been going toe-to-toe with this Zerg's economy all game long. Keep in mind that his bank is not that big, but that's because he's made 7 orbitals. He can basically drop a round of mules and skyrocket ahead as far as the income goes. You can also just scan the entire map, though. Alright. Mules are starting to come out in slightly larger numbers. You do want to have at least a little bit of a bank here as the Terran. But I'm impressed with the way that ByuN is, playing this so far. Now, is there a unit that you can still add in the mix? Right here as either the Terran or the Zerg. Like, is there something that would make these unit compositions even more powerful? You could obviously go into a little bit of Viper play, but it's an additional control group. It's an additional thing to micro. It's gonna make the unit compositions better, but it's tough. It's kind of like the Raven, you know? Raven, yeah, in theory, good idea, but realistically difficult to pull off, although I would say the Raven is quite a bit harder than it is for the Viper to be added into the mix. Baldo, in my mind here, is in the court of the Zerg. He is going to try and maybe collapse on top of this. I mean, if he can get a big surround like this, it might still be possible. No planetary fortress over here. Big fungal growth. Oh, is this what you need? Is this exactly what Solar's been hunting for the entire time? That was a good fight. Still, though, the Zerg units also do take a nosedive. And part of the reason is that ByuN decided to go for some multi-pronged harassment. Takes out an expansion in the bottom left in the meantime. Interestingly enough, we do not have the upgrades for the Liberator, nor for the Medevacs. It's a big oversight here from ByuN. And one that's a little bit strange. Why does he not have advanced ballistics? Why does he not have the Caduceus reactor upgrade? We don't even have a fusion core built. Why? Makes no sense. You should always have one at this stage in the game. And he's had the money for it for sure. I guess that's just an oversight. Zerglings and Ultras on this base. Don't think it's gonna happen. No, he takes down a few of the missile turrets. Tries to do a multi-pronged push. Yeah, maybe it's because it doesn't start with the letter M. Musion more. No, fusion core. It's... Ooh. Ooh. Banelings are starting to really put in some damage, though. Medevacs are getting sniped as well. With the Medevac improvement, by the way, you like effectively need about half of the Medevacs that ByuN has been making so far. Like, these Medevacs are constantly out of energy because they're not getting the regen that they're looking for. Like, it literally doubles the speed at which energy is regenerated in the Medevac, which is a huge buff. Not very useful in the mid-game, but incredibly powerful at this stage. Now, there was a counter-attack yet again right here for ByuN, but I'm wondering if maybe ByuN is making this game a little bit too difficult for himself. Solar's doing a great job trying to just double down on this strategy of his. You don't see this every day. Excuse me, we were sent to mine drones here, or minerals, please. Excuse me. Trying to return the minerals here to the command center. Doesn't work. Ooh. Did he just manually detonate his banelings? I think so. Ooh, Widow Mines are putting in so much damage. I think ByuN may have just blown it. I think he just, yeah, he completely got tunnel visioned, microing the troops that he had, that he forgot upgrading the things that he was building. And just like that, we find ourselves on a white rabbit. ByuN is the type of guy that gets carried away a little bit. I think we've all experienced tunnel visioning. It happens a lot, especially when, well, you're playing at a high amount of APM, when you're trying your absolute best to win the match. That is difficult sometimes to zoom out and think about the big picture. Forgetting advanced ballistics, which is the Liberator ranged upgrade, and Caduceus reactor, which is the Medevac regen upgrade. When you've had, like what? He had like what, 12, 13 or so command centers in total? That is just a massive oversight. He had a lot of resources. He had all the time in the world to get it. And I think, honestly, that cost him. Obviously, it was partially due as well to Solar playing some fantastic Zerg. But in my mind, that game was going exactly according to plan for Terran. He was keeping the Zerg's economy small. The Zerg's army was maxed out for a long while. I mean, the Corruptors were a good call there. But they're much easier to counter when you have the right units in place. Also, I think ByuN got a little bit unlucky with some of the Widowmine detonations. I've never really thought about it all too much, but if you're going Terran in the late game, right, you can choose to not play Widowmines, but play Siege Tanks instead. And the problem with Widowmines is then when your opponent switches into Corruptors, and the Corruptors just sort of swoop onto all of the Liberators, onto all of the Medevacs and whatnot, the Widowmines draw fire to the Corruptors and deal friendly fire when they detonate. So maybe going Siege Tanks there is a significantly better thing too. When you see the Corruptor transition, maybe the time to, yeah, play those Widowmines is in the past. Maybe going back to Siege Tanks would be a better call. Either way, Solar got the victory in the end. And he did so with some stellar defensive gameplay. And maybe just a smidgen of luck, but ultimately StarCraft 2 is always about who is gonna make the mistakes first. You can only play a perfect game for so long. I do feel like we see ByuN though. Like at the absolute highest level of StarCraft 2, I feel like ByuN is the one player that does tend to get tunnel visioned a bit more than most of the other top level contenders. Ooh. It's an invisible Reaper. Or as ByuN calls them, Reapers. Double barracks opener. It does become a little bit predictable sometimes, but this is a strategy that's a nice thing to add to your Terran repertoire for this matchup. In the previous patch, you could still play Terran mech. I don't really know exactly how viable it currently is. We haven't seen a lot of Terran players mess around with it. Other than like the first week when the new patch was first out. A lot of Terrans were giving it a shot and then they haven't since. So I guess they've all decided that it's not worth it. ByuN obviously though is very much so the type of guy that will go into Terran bio almost every time. So the reason I bring it up is because with a double barracks opener, rarely do we see Terrans switching into mech from here. Now, Solar apparently has also decided recently that the straight lair with straight baneling speed, or the quick double upgrades before lair and then into a bit of a later baneling speed, apparently those build orders are suboptimal, because he's once more going into the Roach Warren. Very interesting. He has not played this all too much lately, not at least in the games that I've seen him play, unless I'm misremembering, but I don't think so. He's going into the good old Roach Warren very quickly. Really just using the roaches as a stepping stone. So this is roaches before any sort of like Zergling speed. We have an incredibly quick lair though here for Solar. So we have to keep an eye out on exactly what he's going to be using that for. Just roach speed actually. Okay. It's a 4-minute lair that's finished. Normally you would 100% expect this right now as the Terran here if you were to know that it could be something aggressive, like Mutas. Maybe even some silly Nidus were in play, although that's very uncommon. But I think if you were to have seen this right now as a Terran, you probably would assume a quick Spire. Not the case, it's just good old roach speed. Okay. Evo Chamber. Oh. Overlord speed as well, yes. We're going to bring the ladies across the map. Field trip. Karen, call Margaret and Lily. Bring Brenda to the Overlord balloon. I'm assuming this is what Zerg players and Zerg units get excited about. I don't know. I loved field trips when I was in school. Long time ago, admittedly. It's a little bit strange to see a Ravager marching through the middle of the map right now. So ByuN getting some oversight there is nice. Oh god, it's only... Wait, it's only Karen and Lily. Where's the others? Well, you know what? Overlord speed is done right now. You will certainly be able to snipe the upgrade that's building, but I don't think this is breakable. Oh no, Brenda was apparently ejected out of the plane. It's a bit awkward. They're going home. Worst field trip ever. Yeah, all right. You know what? We were gonna do something fun today, but apparently there was like a traffic issue. I don't know, man. The highway got blocked by a Viking. Maybe the bus crashed. Something went horribly wrong. So instead we're going home. Man, Solar had so many great plans. But ByuN had siege tanks. Now, he did lose the combat shields research, so that's nice. At least nice for Solar. But I don't think that really makes up for most of the early game. Although I say that, Solar really decided very early that the push wasn't going to happen. And he did not hesitate to start droning and getting tech and all of the other upgrades and everything right away yet again. The transition here was honestly quite impressively fast. Like, he's at 3 base saturation already, even though his income was a little bit wanky here. Wanky? Wonky? Weird? Let's combine them into one word. Wanky. I've now been talking English for so many years, I would like to reinvent the language. I would like to suggest that we now also start pronouncing silent letters every single time. Like castle, sword, knight. That sort of stuff, that would be great, thank you. Also, I would like to say that the plural of the word sheep should be sheeps. Thank you very much. Now, we do end up here with roaches. Roaches and infestors. But I don't think we're going to sit here for all too long. It's the most common mistake, by the way, that I hear Dutch people make, especially. Easy plurals for, like, uncommon words, like sheep. Why is the plural for sheep, sheep? Makes no sense. It's very weird. Why is the past tense for hurt, hurt? When somebody in English says, I hurt, it could mean that they are hurting in the moment. It could also mean that they hurt previously. Let's just make it hurted, okay? I hurted yesterday. That would, see, it makes way more sense. There's the Ultra Cavern again, though, so indeed the roaches are going to be transitioned out of. This is a lovely attack, though, from ByuN. There are no Vipers, I don't think. No. So that means that these siege tanks, I mean, they were already dangerous earlier with the Zerg fuel trip. They're going to be really dangerous now. Vipers are a good cause, I guess, now for the Zerg to transition into, but I mean, honestly, there's so many siege tanks that the Terran's actual army to be pushing with is relatively small. Yeah, fungal growth can keep this Terran army back. It's a weird situation. The longer you sit out here, though, as a Terran player, the more Zerg army there's going to be, and you're going to be afraid that you might get overwhelmed. This might just be the moment. Obviously, Solar has been making non-stop units for a while. Decides to go for just a couple of corrosive biles there. Snipe 2 of the tanks. And now suddenly, this Terran field trip also may have to go home. ByuN, really? Okay. You know what? Instead, we decide to what I think is a overcommitment. I think we are overextending. Little Zergling run by is nice work right here for Solar. Oh, there's the fungals. Siege tanks are falling. Soon we're gonna get Ultras with chitinous. That is an upgrade. That is so freaking powerful. And now this Ling run by here. Yeah, it is tearing Terran apart, and ByuN has to go home. Worst case scenario right now for ByuN. I gotta hand it to Solar here in this one. Very, very good decision making. Clean macro, clean micro. Can't really fault him for much. Reading the situation very well. Two is gonna finish up right now for ByuN. But now we are at that big power spike here for the Zerg. Where Ultra Lingbane, with some leftover Roaches, Ravagers, and Infestors for support as well, are all ready to fight. He's got a Stellar Eco on the back of his 2. Now, there's not that many Fungals available. I think there's like 3 more or so, so at least that's something that maybe can be ByuN's saving grace. But usually, as a Terran, you rely on stutter stepping with this type of army against this type of force of the Zerg, and if the Ultras are at your base, there's not a whole lot you can do. Now, this is the most Solar-esque retreat that we ever see. He's got such a good opportunity to try and end the game right now, but no. He's just playing it as safe as he can. Still testing the waters, though, and still getting himself some good transitions going again into Corruptors. Ooh, Ultras, though, make their way up towards the high ground. Roach is in from the back. It's a messy fight. It's honestly a little bit sloppy across the board, too. ByuN may have just pulled off the impossible. And that's why Solar doesn't like pushing up a ramp. I wonder if he would have done it 30 seconds earlier and Terran was still like 30 supply behind. I wonder if it would have gone better then. That fight was pretty atrocious for the Zerg. Look at that. Woo! ByuN's army here. Looking pretty darn powerful. Ultras are some of the least ultra units for the swarm. But that fight was beautifully managed there by ByuN. The problem for ByuN, though, is that his eco is kind of terrible. At least if you compare it to where he was at in the previous game, and that ended up being a loss. I don't really like the position here all too much. No burrow, at least for the Zerg, I don't think. So at least these lings can be dealt with. We do have a transition, by the way, to Widow Mines yet again. So Corruptors, I think, are not a terrible idea. But at this point, there's no Liberators. So maybe making Corruptors is not worth it? I don't know. For now, though, Solar is really just trying to play survival. Gotta hand it to ByuN, though. I thought he would be dead by now. But he's gone immediately back to hyper-aggression. He didn't get tunnel vision, at least just yet. The defense at this base, though, has been very lackluster. I believe that's basically where all those 40 SCVs have died so far. But this is a good push. He scanned about a minute ago up north, now sees the base and takes it down. It justifies losing at least some of those workers. Another fungal. Again in this same section of the map. This ramp is kind of sketchy. Liberator production has now begun as well here for ByuN. So much Terran, though, coming back. This is from that squad that was previously killing bases. Yeah, the amount of stuff here for the Terran's massive. Reinforcing Ultras show up. Some good fungals as well. Zerglings are running towards this. We have Widow Mines dealing some friendly fire, too. But yet again, ByuN defense. Okay. Okay. It's interesting to me how the very best unit that Solar has this game are these bad boys right over here. The Ultras are kind of The Banelings, I mean, ByuN's micro is dealing with it very well. The Ravagers, the Roaches are nice, but not really something you want to make that much anymore. The Infestors, also something you can counter with micro. But the Zerglings, man, they have been absolutely lethal. Beautiful engagements, though, so far. Beautiful disasters for both players as well. In many different engagements. Now the SCVs, though. Ooh, take a beating as well there from the Widow Mine. Still, ByuN has a chokehold on this base. It's certainly going to fall. We have a Liberator trying to be a nuisance over here. Spore Crawler is dancing with it. Obviously, that base over here up north ended up going down a little bit ago. So even though Solar has way more drones, his army is really not that impressive. That's not terrible either, though. Don't get me wrong. This is still a very powerful Zerg force. And now we are fighting on the edge of creep, which is a massive speed boost right here for the Zerg. Really makes these units just catch up with this army of the Terran way better. Massive amount of medevacs as well, actually. We're up to 11 of those bad boys. Okay. Now, is this unit comp that Solar is playing better than the Hydra Lurker style that he has been doing against Terran most of the time? Most of the time, he goes Lurkers with Nidus Worms and he just tries to gobble up the opponent from inside out. I don't know. I watch these kind of army comps for Zerg and it feels to me like you kind of rely on the Terran to make mistakes rather than like your own play to be really good, if that makes any sense. There's just not that much micro here for this Zerg army other than the fungals. And ByuN is obviously, well, a very micro-heavy Terran. He can squeeze so much juice out of these units. Whereas Solar is kind of attack moving and then hoping for the best. I don't like it too much. I don't think it's... There's little skill expression, I guess, in this type of Zerg late game. Still, he does have an awful lot of production. And this is, of course, an extremely swarmy style. 72 drones, though, is nothing all too crazy. Terran is doing a great job just denying bases over and over and over again. Now, will we see a fusion core? Will we see additional command centers? Will we see ByuN make a proper late game transition? Because at this point, we kind of are doing more of the same, yeah. So, ByuN is trying to see if he can brute force his way to a victory just by doing the same type of move over and over. The old main base is now going to fly forward just to have access to some new mineral lines. But this is not a Terran player that is particularly rich. So even though Solar's eco has been hamstringed quite a lot, I still think I prefer it over what ByuN currently has going for himself. If this is a situation where ByuN would have, I don't know, like 6 orbitals as well to boot, it would be a little different. But ByuN is slowly fizzling out, and he's not really making that much headway onto the creep. Cheeky little Zerglings again. How about like one bunker? Or like literally anything to try and defend this base. A couple of Widow Mines. Maybe set your rally point here. I don't know. I think ByuN is going for a push. And this could be almost like an all-in. This needs to deal damage. But there's about a 0% chance this is going to break through. Unless the Widow Mines get some really nice hits in. But it's tough. Zerglings once more just being a nuisance. There's a hit squad as well as of infested Terrans right over here. The Changelings trying their best to at least pretend like they are part of the Terran army. But ByuN right now is in massive trouble. It's a good army, though, that he's got. The Libs are good, too. Corrosive Balls. Pretty dang solid. This is an important base for Solar, who is now splitting up a lot of his troops, though. Here we go. Widow Mine! Oh, it does get a nice hit in. In the end, Medevacs are there to retreat and help save some of those units. Solar decides to give up on the expansion on the other side of the map. I think you go for the base over here, Solar. You know that it's been taken. Yeah, you have to go over there. He's thinking the same thing. This is a base from the Terran that's effectively all the mining, and it is wide open. In the meantime, Fungals are hitting as well on the right side engagement. I think Solar's done it. There's still a large Terran army that needs to be dealt with, but the creep spread is good enough, the income is good enough. And if Terran wants to fight, I think it's gonna have to be on creep, unless somehow, some way, Solar is going to be baited off of it. 23 workers remain. Solar decides to just cancel the base, there's no reason for it. Spend the money, try to max out. Because if he's reading this correctly, he should know that this is now effectively an all-in here from our Terran. New SCVs are mining, but they're not going to be able to mine for much longer. Okay. Let's look at the main engagement. This Terran army is way too small. We do have some nice corrosive balls yet again. We have fungals for everybody. GG gets cold. And just like that, it is Solar who obtains the victory in a very solid game number 2. I wonder if he would have committed to the Ultralisk attack a little bit sooner. Whether or not he would have been able to win this, like, I think about 8 minutes or so sooner than he ended up getting the job done. But I mean, the Zergling run by still dealt enough damage there to really, leverage his way into a proper late game. But that was a solid series. A little unlucky, though, for ByuN that he ended up, not getting the most important upgrades in the late game in the first game of the series, because this could have been so much closer.